Hi everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Your Edmonton Electrician, where we bring customer service back to the trades. In today's edition of Your Edmonton Electrician, we're going to be talking about grounding and bonding and the differences between grounding and bonding. As always, here at Hauer Power Electrical, we are happy to answer our customers' questions and concerns. If you or anyone you know has an electrical concern or electrical topic that you would like to hear about, then we want to hear about that. Get at us and we would love to do a video about it or shoot you just the answer personally. As your professional Edmonton electrician, our mission is to provide you with power through customer service. So in today's video, we're going to go through commercial bonding and grounding differences, the differences between grounding and bonding by definition, as well as by application. So first I'm going to hit you up with a fact here. If you search Edmonton Electrical Contractor on Google, you will get 1.65 million results. And if you search Edmonton commercial electrical companies, you get 2.21 million results. So it's a pretty intimidating figure if you're trying to find a quality electrician for your electrical problem and you don't know where to look. Here at Hauer Power, our mission is customer service. Get at us. We'd love to give you a free estimate and have a look at your system. So here's a story. We did a service call. A customer called us out, said, hey guys, we're having some dimming lights and some flickering loads and we don't know what it is. Can you come have a look? So we say, sure. Go head out. First thing I look at is the main panel, and sure enough, the grounding electrode was it was not faulty, but it wasn't installed correctly. So they had a number 6 copper ground, and that's great. That came from their panel, from their neutral bus at their main panel, and it went all the way down to their main water line, which was a metal water line, so that's great. But at the actual fitting, at the actual U-clamp, the GAR clamp, whatever you want to call it, at their bonding grounding clamp on their water main, it was never tightened. Not by hand, not by a screwdriver. You could spin it freely around and there was no connection there. It wasn't even resting on it. It was resting on the vapor barrier that was intact around there. So whatever happened to that contractor that did it, the rest of their work looked great, but the grounding wasn't there. So here at Hauer Power, we do check sheets, templates. We make sure that there's QA involved in your process so nothing gets missed. When we build your house, when we do a service call, we go through and we're thorough and we have a look at everything, and that way we can know for sure that it's been done. So we re-stripped that copper ground at that customer's house, re-secured it, and we recommended a surge protector for them. And prior to the surge protector, just the re-securing of that ground really helped with the dimming of all their lights, because it was excessive. They would turn on a lamp and it would really dim down, and some dimming is okay, but whenever a large load kicks in, however, at the level they had it, it was not okay. It was not acceptable. The CEC, the Canadian Electrical Code, that's what we abide by here in Edmonton, Alberta. They define all the definitions for grounding, for bonding, for grounding conductor, for bonding conductor, for grounding electrode. For all of these different terms, they have section 0 of the Canadian Electrical Code to define it so that we have something to go off of. As a whole, every electrician can go off of this definition. So bonding is defined by the Canadian Electrical Code. This is the definition in that code. Bonding is defined as a low impedance path obtained by permanently joining all non-current carrying metal parts to ensure electrical continuity and having the capacity to conduct safely any current likely to be imposed on it. That's quite a mouthful. That's all one sentence, and that's quite a mouthful for if you don't know the terminology that's really coherent with that term. But there is a difference between grounding and there is a difference between bonding. The two have many similarities, but a core difference. Grounding, different than bonding, grounding in the CEC is defined as a permanent and conductive path back to earth with sufficient ampacity to carry any fault current liable to be imposed on it and of the capacity to conduct safely any current. Oh, I think I misread that. Sorry, we have grounding is a permanent and conductive path to the earth with sufficient ampacity to carry any fault current liable to be imposed at it and of a sufficiently low impedance to limit the voltage rise above ground and to facilitate the operation of the protective devices in the circuit. That's right out of this code book. Right here, this is what the current edition is. Right now it's year 2019. You're looking at the 2018 version of the electrical code. This is good for just about 3 years. They update this every 3 years. And when they update it, 1 year, 1 month, and 1 day from the date of that publication date of that code book, that's when the new code comes into effect. So this code came into effect in early 2019. I believe it was either January or February of this year that the 2018 code came into effect. So in the next year, it'll be 2021. That'll be the next code book update. Then it'll come into effect then. 1 year, 1 month, and 1 day after the fact. So in layman's terms, between grounding and bonding, it's anything after the service, that's your bonding. Anything before the service, including the service, that's your grounding. So the difference between a bond and a ground just has to do with really its source. Because the whole purpose of a ground is to help that overcurrent device operate. Whether it's a breaker, whether it's a fuse, the whole point of the ground is to limit that rise above ground and to facilitate that operation of that protective device, which is your breaker. So when people say that a ground fault actually has current flowing to the ground, that's actually an incorrect statement. A ground fault has the current flowing back to the source from where it came, and that's what causes that breaker to trip and open your circuit. That's the whole point. So the whole idea behind grounding and bonding in the electrical field is to limit injury and to reduce any sort of property damage. So if you don't have proper grounding and bonding, and that current cannot flow back to that service, and your breaker cannot open the circuit and trip, then if you have an overloaded circuit, it's going to overheat your wires and you're going to have an electrical fire, and that causes property damage as well as, or worse, right? We don't want any of that. So at Hauer Power, we all have our check sheets and templates we go through. Everything gets grounded, everything gets bonded according to CEC, and that way we can ensure a quality installation for whether you have a residential service or a commercial service. Whatever your system may be, we have the grounding and bonding procedure for it. So we'll go through the applications here. There's many different applications for grounding and bonding. We'll go through the different kinds of commercial bonding you might face. We'll go through grounding electrode applications, from water line to ground rods to ground plates. We'll go through why is grounding and bonding required, where is grounding required, and who is competent to install your ground rod or your ground plate. And we'll go all through that in just a second after we take a quick break. Hey guys, we're back after a quick break there. Wanted to finish up here with talk to you more about grounding. So we were talking about who's competent to install a grounding rod or a grounding plate, and where grounding is required, and does grounding need a permit. We have some code references to talk to you about, and after all that, we'll tell you a little bit more about ourselves. So when your electrician says that he doesn't want to pull a permit maybe for what he's doing, you might want to give someone else a call. Any alteration to an electrical system requires a permit. So they can get pretty strict with that, and fees can get pretty competitive, but right here, the Canadian Electrical Code Book here, Rule 2-004 states that electrical contractors or others responsible for carrying out the work shall obtain a permit from the inspection department before commencing work with respect to installation, alteration, repair, or extension of any electrical equipment. So if you want to save a few bucks and maybe you don't want to get that permit, usually that can be fine and dandy. However, if your electrical utility provider finds out about that, or if the electrical inspectors find out about that, they might not be so happy about it. So it's always better to err on the side of caution, even with that extra cost of a permit. It's always good to have a second set of eyes during an inspection to give you that peace of mind for your project. So again, we're going to talk about the different applications where grounding and bonding might come into play for you. You might need some grounding and bonding, well, you will need grounding and bonding in all residential applications, but as well as that, grounding and bonding is really strict in commercial laboratories. We do a lot of work here in Edmonton, commercial laboratories, as well as in schools. Grounding and bonding is going to be very pertinent, especially when you have little younger children running around in elementary schools and preschools, you're going to want to verify that everything is 100% bonded back to the ground, because if it isn't, you could have not only a lawsuit on your hands, but much, much worse. So something like that is it requires the utmost attention to. As well, hospitals, grounding and bonding is huge there. You can't have too much static current running around, especially for all your equipment. Certain equipment has certain needs, and a lot of that equipment in hospitals requires isolated grounds and isolated bonds back to the source. That's to remove any static grounding issues. Even in condo structures, any building where there is electrical service, there needs to be adequate grounding and bonding procedures. So for commercial bonding, you're going to have grounding electrode, typically, whether it's a ground rod, ground plate, multiple ground rods, multiple ground plates. If you have a water line that's sufficiently sized for the application, then you can often tap onto that for your grounding electrode. But depending on the size of your facility, different commercial applications are going to have different requirements for what you're going to use for your system electrode for your ground. Grounding is required, as we talked about before, just to minimize your injury potential, any damage to structure, property damage. If you don't have grounding in place, you're going to have a lot more electrical issues. Maybe not even just for injury or property damage, but the proper functioning of equipment in today's age requires a grounded electrical circuit. It requires everything to be bonded. Places can burn and people can, don't want to say that the fear factor there, but there's a lot that can go wrong when things aren't bonded and grounded correctly. Who is competent to install your system ground or your bond? Anyone can run a bond, really, but just like anyone can change oil, you can make a mistake, and it's always better to have a mechanic do your mechanics on your car. If you have some electrical in your home, it's better to have an electrician work on your electrical in your home. You can try to tackle it yourself, but you might run into some issues. Maybe if you don't run into issues right away, you might run into issues in the future. And for that reason, we always recommend to hire an Edmonton electrician. Hire someone local to your area, hire a professional that you know and trust. And here at Hauer Power, that's what we provide, is customer service for an honest price for an honest contractor. It's really pretty simple, but a lot of the other guys out there, I won't name any names, they charge $300 to come to your door before they even tell you what they can do or before they even fix your problem. Our call out's $185. That covers an hour and a half of labor. That's fixing your problem. Just over half the price. It's crazy. Give us a call. At Hauer Power Electrical, our mission is to provide power through customer service. So if you want customer service, give us a call. Any electrician can solve your issue, but we're the honest ones that you can know and trust. Give us a call. Have a great day, guys, and stay tuned for our next edition of Your Edmonton Electrician. Bye now.